Do roll call, please.
Yes, to do roll call, please, Parker.
Aguajita Oaks,
Present.
Mesa,
Present.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Here.
Deer Flats,
Here.
Del Monte Beach,
Here.
Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande, Downtown,
Here.
Fisherman's Flats, Glenwood,
Here.
Monterey Vista, New Monterey,
Present.
thank you, Oak Grove,
Here.
Old Town,
Here.
Skyline,
Here.
and Villa Del Monte.
Here.
Thank you. And information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom. Our telephone is available on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org and is located in the back table. For remote commenters, you will be muted until it is your turn to speak. For in-person attendees, please keep your conversations to a minimal and devices muted if possible. And in-person conversations will also prevent audio interference with the meeting. Tonight's meeting is using a new system of microphones and speakers to address the recent AV issues, so that should help it overall. But for those that are speaking into the mics, the pods are capturing it for remote listeners. And then these stands, they will need to be manually turned on by pressing the button, and there is a 2-second delay. So please consider that as well before you speak. Otherwise, the system should be working appropriately. And we will continue to troubleshoot the issues as they come. So thank you for participating in your local city government.
Vice Chair to call for public comments from anybody in the audience that has anything that's not on the agenda this evening.
Hi, my name is Robin Dometer and I live in Skyline Forest. And I have a request, and I don't know if this is the place to do it or not. But in the Skyline Forest, at all the entrances, we have signage that's there. And all of those signs should be repainted. The ones that are by 68 and Skyline coming into the neighborhood off the 68, they have illumination, they have lighting, which for some reason is not on anymore. And I've called the city, which has gone absolutely nowhere. So I'm requesting that the city, the committee, or whoever is supposed to do stuff like that, keep the signs and also get the lights back. Thank you.
Evening. My name is Carla Bitter O'Sullivan. I'm here as a Friends board member for the Monterey Public Library Friends Foundation. Just to remind everybody, in our current news cycle, IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum Library Services funding, which many libraries nationwide benefit from, and museums as well, has been defunded. People that have been proud recipients locally of those grants have had those grants recalled, and those grants fund infrastructure. They sometimes fund great new sexy projects that everybody wants, that lovely boutique project or that special pop that helps elevate their museum or their library. But in the case of the library, that would be infrastructure, money that would be going to keep this place, keep serving the thousands of people that it does in the county, people not in the county, in the city of Monterey, but also through the bookmobile, much more far-reaching than this edifice. And so I want to introduce myself and say how important it is that we continue to fund infrastructure, things like the bathrooms and the playing carpets, so that when we do have that opportunity to get that little lanyard, that little extra bit to make a wonderful project shine, it's going to be in a beautiful building that supports our community. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Diane Delarmier, and I am on the Board of Library Trustees, so I'm also here to talk about the library for just a second. And we have, for several years, tried to figure out the renovations or what path to take for taking care of this building. And some of that, a lot of that has been waylaid by budget cuts and the pandemic, and then taking a step back with all the cuts and trying to figure out what is most important But as of right now, we are in need of over $420,000 in just basic ADA compliance and safety. So it isn't, these aren't frills or anything. We're talking about restrooms, elevator access, and then you can move on to the other important things for the library, like archival storage of the California History Room treasures that we hold here. I invite you to take a walk around sometime when the library is open and just take a little walking tour if you can make the time to do that and take a little look around. And I hope that you'll understand how much the library means to the community and see that the need is great.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, my name is Yu Chang. I am an Old Monterey resident, and I am a very proud bike commuter in Monterey. We have some small but lovely little bits of bike infrastructure like our rec trail. However, for anyone who actually bike commutes here, do any of you bike commute? Awesome. You might know that the bike infrastructure to actually use our bike paths as a bike commuter are entirely lacking. You know, it involves needing to get up on sidewalks to be able to be safe because there is no shoulder whatsoever. I have almost been hit by a car 3 times in the last 2 years, and I've been nearly doored by a car twice. In addition to needing drastic overhauls to our bike infrastructure, like protected bike lanes, ways to actually incentivize using bikes as modes of transportation around Monterey, we also have basic lacks of things like protected bike parking over at, city facilities like the sports center. I think this might be a place where small changes like that could actually come about. What I'm asking for is protection over the bike parking at the sports center. But what I'm really hoping that this sparks is a conversation about Monterey's actual commitment to bike and non-car infrastructure and other modes of transportation, needing really drastic changes to bike lanes instead of prioritizing parking. And needing to incentivize ways to get people on bikes and out of their cars if we actually care about having a livable climate change community future. Thank you.
Is there a project?
Not seeing anybody else in chambers. Is there anyone online? Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, there's one person online, yes.
Go ahead. Who is it?
Rosemary Robert.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Go ahead.
Regarding the library, the community room is rented and used frequently. So source of income for the library and much needed for the community. However, it's a little small, and the tech part, is really not good. So that I'm sure there are groups who would like to use it, but it certainly needs upgrades for that to happen. I know that would be a big ticket item. However, I think it would be very worthwhile to the community and to the pocketbook of the library. Thank you.
No other hands online.
Okay, that closes public comments. Call for approval of minutes from February 19th. Other suggestions on the minutes, if there's any corrections there too? I'll move that we accept the minutes that were published for February 19th meeting. Can I have a second? Thank you. Parker, you want to call roll?
Aguada Oaks.
Aye.
Thank you. Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casa Nova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats. Approve. Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
downtown.
Abstain, I wasn't here. But I
Thank you.
did watch the video.
Thank you. Fisherman's Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Yes.
New Monterey.
Aye.
Thank you. Oak Grove,
Yes.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Good evening.
and Vio Del Monte.
Abstain. Wasn't here.
Thank you. Minutes approved.
Cool. Are there any staff reports? NCIP staff coordinator, senior engineer?
Yes, we do have one staff report. Let me pull up the presentation. Oh, give me one sec. Yeah.
Worked so good before.
Okay, yes, we do have one brief presentation
Please, God.
for this evening. And that is on progress at the Hilltop Park Center and fire stations 12 and 13. So I'll start with Hilltop Park Center. So we've completed the facility condition assessment. The pottery room, plumbing, sediment filtration system is currently in progress, that upgrade. And that's being completed by city staff. We also have a contract in place to manage and perform the remainder of upgrades. And we're scheduling a meeting with the recreation department. Part of the upgrades, as if you recall, will be the seismic study, ADA improvements, HVAC upgrades, roof replacement, window replacement, new lighting system. We'll go as far as the $1 million that was approved will take us. And then at fire stations 12 and 13, we've also completed the facility condition assessment. We have a same contract in place to manage and perform work. Currently, we're working with the fire department to at different logistical scenarios for maintaining use of the fire stations while upgrades are happening, for example, to the kitchens and to some of the living spaces. So that's work that we're trying to stage phased in order to maintain use of the facilities. But the work will also include ADA improvements, roof repairs and replacements, window replacements, adding increased storage and improving the storage spaces, and truck bay concrete work. And the one that's in New Monterey in particular has some issues with the truck bay. So those are those two projects. It's a brief presentation. That's all we have.
Cool. I don't have any report from Shaneri, the chair, and I don't have any informational report to provide, so we can move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, yes, next agenda item will be item number 4, which is recommend location for one recreation trail bike repair station. And will recommend revised project to city council. So as you recall, we've spent some time in the previous 2 meetings talking about the bike repair station. We finalized on having a repair station with equipment. So, and in the previous meeting, we made the decision to go from 2 stations to 1. So now we need to come to an idea on where we would like, general idea where that station would be. keeping in mind that ultimately Parks and Rec staff will pick the actual final location, but they will put it in. So we're recommending the Fisherman Shorelines Park, somewhere in the vicinity of Coast Guard Pier and the basketball court. Or Window on the Bay Park near the volleyball nets and the whale structure, for those that know where that area is. So we can open it up for committee questions, and then we'll go to public comment. So are there any questions?
We have a question. Because this project, the submittal is from my neighborhood. I just want to make sure that the submitter was very adamant that there be a bike pump. And I just want to make sure that will be included as part of the tools. He has no preference on the location.
So yes, there will be a bike pump, and in the agenda report, there's some, I included some pricing information as well. So it comes, the pump is in two different orientations. There's the one you see here where it's somewhat separate, but then they also have it, or maybe this is the connected one. So you can either have it like there's a picture in the attachment one that has it separate or together, attached. I'm recommending the attached orientation.
Yeah.
But it will have tools, and the price is, I think, pretty reasonable. So with tools and the attached connected bike pump, it's roughly $2,200 for the equipment.
Thank you, Reggie.
Public comments? Does anyone in the public have any comments on this item for consideration?
Might as well say it now rather than later, but, has anyone thought of possibly putting the brace in front of the sports center and then having the equipment at the check-in station at the sports center? Since Parks and Rec's gonna get involved anyway. Yes, more for them to do, but kind of leaving the decision up to them, which makes sense. And, somebody could just give a credit card or their ID and then borrow the tools, step outside where the brace would be at that open space, the only piece of grass there in front of the sports center, and they'd be open from 6 to 9:30. And then we wouldn't have to worry about the equipment to install. Anyway, just an idea. Good idea.
Gonna respectfully push back on that idea. For people who actually bike around, we need these kinds of tools and repairs any time of day, not just when the sports center is open. We also need to make sure that access is for everybody, including people who are unhoused, people who might not have a credit card, who might not have ID, things like that. I would suggest the Fisherman's Wharf by the basketball court. I think that's an area that encounters more bike traffic. If you get over towards Windows by the Bay, you're going to kind of cut off people who cut off to get to Old Town versus the other place. You get a lot of cross traffic for people that are going all the way to Seaside, Old Monterey, and over to Pacific Grove versus Windows by the Bay. You kind of only catch those people who are commuting to like Delray Oaks and to Seaside. So I think the spot for one includes a lot more like traffic, which is really difficult.
Not seeing anybody else in chamber that wants public comments. Anybody online?
There are no hands raised online.
Bring it back to the committee for discussion. Anybody have any comments?
I was just reviewing the original submittal from the project submitter, and it does specify on the bike path. I think the second public speaker brought up some good points that the intent of this is to be accessible to everybody. I don't belong to the sports center. If I were riding my bike, the sports center is not located along the bike path. And two, I needed to use it. I don't have access to it because I don't belong to the sports center. So I think while that is a good suggestion and a possible addition later on or a project to have that kind of equipment at the sports center, I don't think it meets the intent of the original submittal, and it makes it inaccessible to a certain segment of the population.
I was gonna suggest a window to bay location because you're not in the way of the. But at the same time, if you're going to gear to more bikes, then the fisherman's location seems to make sense. If you can find a space where you're out of the way of all those people, there's a lot of walkers on that section of the path. So that's what I think the balance is with this location. I'd be interested in folks' input on that.
I got a quick question. When you looked at the price of these things, I presume they have are the prices for like replacement tools, fairly affordable? And is that something that they offer pretty quick service on?
So yes, there are replacements and they are available. And yes, the pricing is very reasonable. If you want to look at attachment 3, if people have access to it, it includes the tools and yes, they do supply replacement parts.
Okay, the prices are reasonable. That's what, yeah.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions on this topic from the committee? Within the committee? So someone want to make okay.
Hi, Jill from Via Del Monte. I just want to say
Microphone.
Hi, Jill from Via Del Monte, and I just want to say, being on that side of Monterey, we are soon going to be hopefully connecting to the National Bike Trail, and hopefully connecting to the bike trails right in the middle of Fremont, so I can quit defending that constantly. And I think we will have more bike traffic, if that is a consideration, on that side of town as well. And the window on the bay seems like a little more central. Do you want to include the rest of the traffic? Of course, it's not all in the city of Monterey, but I don't know if that matters. Thank you.
I would like to move that we put it on the first one, our experimental location, in the windows to the bay where I know there's lots of room, and then we can come back. So that's the motion. Discussion. We can always come back and put the second one in if that one's working out.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call. Aguajito Oaks,
Aye.
Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande. Aye. Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats. Aye. Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Aye.
New Monterey. New Monterey.
Janira is listening. Maybe she is muted. Can someone unmute her? Oh,
No,
sorry. Aye, sorry. She said I need to vote.
Thank you. Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skylines,
Yes, please.
and Via Del Monte.
Aye.
All right, motion approved.
So the next item on the agenda is the location, or Reggie has a staff presentation, I guess. Thank you.
Yes, so next item is item 5, which is the item with recommend 2 radar speed locations in the Villa Del Monte neighborhood. This project has been around for quite some time. It was originally recommended to NCIP back in 2007. It was on the books in 2019, 2020. When it was closed out and the money returned to the city. Then it was brought back most recently here, I think in last year. And it went to city council. City council returned it to the NCIP committee to identify locations. Some of the locations that have been previously recommended included Delavina Avenue, Encina Avenue, Montecito Avenue, and Ramona Avenue. Casa Verde has been ruled out previously with the idea that there's been so much traffic and combination of stop signs that there's not a lot of speeding on that road.
That's true.
I would also, there was in January of 2005, there was a traffic calming plan completed for the Villa Del Monte neighborhood. And speeding was identified as an issue on Encina Avenue between Casa Verde and Delavina. Also on Del Robles at Encina, on Encina at Palo Verde. And traffic speeds was also an issue identified on Garden. So the purpose for this evening is for the NCIP committee to try to identify a location if possible. If not, I would recommend that we let this one go, close it out, or don't reinvigorate it. This project has been on the books for almost 20 years. And the number one reason why it hasn't been completed is because of inability to identify a location. So that I'll just end there. I can take questions if anyone has any.
So I thought I read in that there was, someone had said, well, just use one of the portable radar signs rather than having a permanent sign. Did I miss that or?
That was a recommendation, but then once we evaluated it closer, that's not something that NCIP can do because it has to be a fixed equipment in order to be funded by NCIP.
At least several years ago, at the time, Sergeant Pincus said that the police department has one.
That is correct. They do, but they set it up, for some short period of time. Then they move it to a different location. So it wouldn't be, that's a totally different route. And if that's something that is done, that wouldn't be funded through NCIP.
Yeah, that would be my point, that if we did that or recommended that they talk to the police department, then we wouldn't need to be doing this.
Hi, Jill from Villa Del Monte. Actually, one of the spots, the proposed spots that you just discussed is actually right in front of my house. And yeah, occasionally we have speeders, but I go yell at them and throw lemons. So I think I got that handled, but it's a super wide street and straight, but we have this really cool, I was at all the traffic study that was done. I went to all those meetings. It was really right after I bought my house in the early 2000s. And, ideally the curb little bump out things that they planned would kind of, I think, slow people down. It's just a long kind of straight, area. And I think they also have something planned on Oxnard Circle. And I think that would help. We just get a lot of truck traffic. And Andrew knows about that. And we worked on a project together where I learned that signs don't work. So can I make a motion to
I'll have to receive public comment first,
Okay.
but yeah, otherwise you can make a motion afterwards. Thank you.
So we can open it up for public comment.
I have one
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what you're talking about Garden Road, which is a kind of a business district, are there any issues with putting one there? Do you think neighbors would have an issue or the businesses would have an issue there?
Different neighborhood.
Different neighborhood? Okay, I thought you were talking Garden Road by the airport.
No, yeah, that's not That would be in this budget.
Got it. Public comments?
Open for public comment. I don't see any. Let me check online. There is no public comment online. So we'll bring it back
Bring
to,
it back to the committee for a motion or
Okay, my first motion, I move that this project be removed from our agenda forever. For now.
so. Okay.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Aguilera Oaks,
aye.
Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande.
Aye.
Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista.
Aye.
New Monterey.
Aye.
Thank you. Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Yes, please.
and Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
All right, motion approved.
Okay, up for the next item, number 6 on our agenda. Reggie?
Okay, we're on to item number 6 on tonight's agenda. This is for the NCIP Opportunity Property Purchase Project. I guess previously known as FUND, but that's just some terminology, but we can talk about that if people have questions. So the NCIP Opportunity Property Purchasing Project was closed with roughly $500,000 in funding in April of 2020. This past fiscal year, it was brought back. It received enough votes to be a cutoff project, and it was returned with the other cutoff projects to the NCIP committee. So this was, I guess, the conversation this evening would be if the committee would like to return this to consideration to the city council. Some of the reasons for this fund has been to purchase property for parks and park centers. And from what I understand, Casanova Oak Knoll Park is an example of that in the past. And the NCIP committee recommended restarting the fund project with $250,000. So here, available for questions.
Any questions from the committee?
So
Not discussion, but just questions.
question. So if somebody makes a motion and we decide to pass it, what we would be passing is that the $250,000 would be assigned to this fund. Is that correct?
We would go back to city council to,
Ask them for the.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Go to the parks.
Jamie?
So clarifying comment, there's not a clarifying question to, one, there's not a piece of property right now that's been identified. This was just a project that we had put on the list because we wanted to start this funding. Question 2, when we put this on, it's a cutoff project. So I believe all the other projects need to be done before this one would get any funds. And this one stands ahead of whatever things might be after it. But that's based on the priority we had voting night.
I think, I'm sorry, I maybe I forgot the first question. The second point about how cutoff projects are funded, I think that there is some, I'll call it debate perhaps. There's no actually official policy that I can find on how cutoff projects are funded. If there's funding available, then I think the cutoff projects can be funded. In this 2025 cycle of projects, there have been other projects that were not funded. And this would, in theory, be able to be funded at the $250,000 level because of those other projects, like the New Monterey plan update was ranked relatively high, for example. And there's a few other, like the, I can't, that comes to mind, but there are a few other projects that were higher in the list that city council did not fund. So there is funding available.
Any other questions from the committee? Let's go to public comments on this issue. Anybody have a comment on this particular issue?
I had a quick question before.
AJ has his hand up.
Yeah, for clarity, so this project, was this one passed back to NCIP from City Council? Can you remind us? And so I see Jamie shaking her head, yes. And so can you add context to the rationale for that?
So there were four cutoff projects that were recommended to city council at the last cycle, one of which was the Villa Del Monte neighborhood signs, radar speed signs, which we discussed in the previous item. And there was another, it's escaping me right now. There were two that were returned specifically because they were incomplete, I would say, and they didn't have a full description. Oh, including the bikes, I believe the bike rack repair station. So it was bike rack repair stations, Villa Del Monte radar speed signs, this project and another. And so council returned those two specifically for lack of, I'd say, some incompleteness. And then the other ones were returned kind of just because they were lumped together, for lack of a better term. So council did not approve any of the four cutoff projects at the last cycle.
Okay, so there wasn't, my takeaway is there's not a specific reason for them returning this specific project.
I would agree with that, yes. But they were returned together. So, I mean, if the NCIP committee would like to have this approved, we would need to take it back to city council.
I think they remanded it to us for further consideration about what it specifically is going to go to. And it's an opportunity fund so that we can act if we need to. Public comments.
So one thing that's not clear to me is whether or not this would be added to the 500,000 you referred to before, Reggie, or is this brand new money? And then, well, anyway, you can answer my question directly. The other thing is that in the past, at least, I believe opportunity buying's been for specific reasons, like window on pay. It was earmarked, whereas this just seems to be kind of just sort of a slush fund for buying property. If it comes up and there's nothing in a parks master plan that shows where it's going to be spent. So to me, it's not a real wise allocation of NIP monies. It just becomes a way for the city to arbitrage NIP funds and have the interest and earnings go back into the general fund. So I would suggest that you not do this until there's actually some kind of idea, at least embryonic in mind, as to where you want to do some opportunity buying. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Anyone online?
There are no hands raised online.
Back to the committee for discussion.
So I do remember when there was discussion about this for, is it Oak Knoll that's right next to MPS?
Oak Grove.
Oak Grove.
Okay.
There was a property that was considered might be available. It fell through, but I remember the discussion was somewhat opposite of this last point, that if something does become available, and I remember the people of that neighborhood were complaining because they didn't have a good location there in their little community to go across some of the main streets to get little ones to the park, like when Venice the Menace and other parks. So what was discussed at the time was having that money available is actually valuable, because if something does come available, and we're going to wait for the next NCIP cycle, it may be too late to grab those properties. I understand the risk concern there with having that money just sitting there and could be lucrative for the council to take back. But I sort of am leaning towards having that fund available, especially, I think this is a related topic. We've been talking about all the backlogs of projects to be done and bringing on more projects this year. And we've been sort of toying with the idea of, is there a way we can limit that? Like maybe staff take a look at what's realistic that we could do, but that becomes controversial. Or how many might we limit for either that year's cycle or by neighborhood or whatever. But I think this is setting money aside that could be used for a good purpose. Because the way we normally do it, right, is we just go through the projects, we vote on them until we run out of money on voting night, right? So there's money we could maybe set aside for that purpose. So just my thoughts on that.
Jamie?
Couple points. We earn interest on the monies that haven't, for projects that haven't been completed. It gets back to us, so it doesn't disappear. In the past, we have had, we said a lot of the things that you said when we were going through the voting. Remember, we spent hours on this discussion. One of the things we said is, this is a very natural project for us to fund. It takes some of the pressure off because it's not another thing to build at this time. I'd like to say in the past, we've done this very successfully. In Del Monte Beach, we've used the opportunity buying fund to buy some random bits of property. We then leveraged those into a land swap that cleared up 2 blocks, city blocks, and opened them up as permanent park. So you're taking advantage of opportunity when it comes up. You don't really know how it's going to play out. But if you don't have the money ahead of time, you can't take advantage of the opportunity. So that's 3 points. And the last point I would say is, I kind of hear there's a little bit of a tendency to want to engineer the cutoff projects a bit. That's always a temptation. We vote and we prioritize from beginning to end, and we stop at a certain cutoff. Beyond that, we say there's really no more support. We're not going to keep going down the list forever. Then there's always a little bit of a temptation to say, well, if I can knock this one off the list, mine comes up. And that's not how it works. Each project stands on its own. This was prioritized by the committee and was voted on by the committee to be a lot of money available for the potential future need.
You stole everything I was going to say. Everywhere. Because I agree. We needed this money. When the opportunity comes and we don't have the funding, it's gone. So we need to build this back up even further than this 250,000, way higher. So like when Gene came to us and they had that idea last year, was it, or year before? That was a big amount of money, but it was a really good opportunity. It fell through. But again, I think we need to have this as an absolute fund and have it there for the opportunity when it shows itself.
Do I hear a motion in that?
I will make a motion that we accept or we put this back to the city council, fully funded at the $250,000.
I'll second that.
I might suggest modifying it that this is an opportunity fund so that we can strike when the market provides us an opportunity.
Right.
And it's not that we were planning something or have a plan for something.
That's right.
We want to have funds available when we need to go shopping or.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not sure the council understood that. If I'm looking at the.
Yeah, I'll still second that because I think it is really important. There are still many areas in Monterey that don't have a park nearby, that don't have a park real close. And when Monterey expanded real fast early on, there wasn't a lot of foresight in putting parks in many neighborhoods. And this is where when places come up, dot lots or so forth, this is an opportunity to be able to go grab those before they go to a private party where we have to be able to act quickly. So I think this is really important.
We have a first and a second. Is there any more committee discussion or is it time to call for the vote?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
When did the amount get set at 250,000?
In the voting structure, we said 250 on this one, and that was really done voting night, I think, unless.
The motion and we seconded it and we
Yeah.
passed it at 250,000.
It just seems so unrealistic to me that
It's a random number. The intent was to build it up over time so that we'd have enough to actually go buy something. Because real estate at 250, probably not much.
right. I mean, you can buy cars for that.
Totally agree. The intent was to build that fund so that we,
Get it going, yeah.
to get it back on the table, if you will.
With the budget available at the time.
Any further discussion or call for the vote? Say, go for the vote.
Okay, roll call. Aguada Oaks,
Aye.
Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casa Nova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande. Aye. Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista. Yes. New Monterey.
Aye.
Thank you. Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Yes, please.
and Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7. And Reggie has a presentation.
Okay. Yes, item number 7 this evening is Virgin Avenue decomposed granite path widening project. So we have, this was one of the projects that we contracted out for support to the city to get things done. We've completed the design of the sidewalk section on Virgin Avenue between Grant Avenue and Montecito Avenue. And I'm here this evening to request $16,000 in additional funds to move forward and construct this section of sidewalk. The project was originally approved at $50,000. We used the difference, what was that? It's coming to me off the top of my head, roughly $30,000 to do the design. So we have $22,800 left. And we need roughly another $29,000, $30,000 to actually construct the sidewalk. And that's where the $16,000 comes from. And I'm available for questions. I think, that's the presentation.
Reggie, out of curiosity, why did it go over the projected 1,000?
So originally, the $50,000 was simply for construction, not for the design. But then we did contract out 20 projects mid to late last year, 2024. And this was one of those projects that was contracted out.
Don't be so.
The design was contracted out?
Correct, the design, yes. That was not the design. The outside design was not included in the original $50,000 request.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Reggie? Go ahead, Jill.
Jill from Villa Del Monte. Do we not have city staff that is good at designing?
We are short on city staff, yes, by more than 50%, especially in engineering. So yes, we do have staff that are capable of designing sidewalk sections, but we're designing a multitude of other things, and we felt that this was the right opportunity to contract this project out.
Any other questions from the committee? Yeah, go for it.
And my recollection is that this project was bundled with similar projects in order to save money through efficiencies.
Yes, so other projects we had were improvements to Veterans Drive, some other sidewalk path sections in Skyline, as well as the Old Town neighborhood. So we did bundle these. This is the first one, say, to come to fruition to complete the design. There'll be several others following closely behind. Yes.
Thank you. Will those several others have additional contingency requests?
They may, it's to be determined. I would say that it's not going to be, it's not a foregone conclusion, no.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the committee have questions for Reggie? Public comments? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this particular item? Not seeing any in the house. Are there anybody online looking?
There's no hands raised online.
Okay, back to the committee. Comments, thoughts, motions, anyone?
Right, to make the kind of comment that makes NCIP such a popular thing, boy, that's a lot of money to spend on design, and that was not what I would expect for just a sidewalk. But I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the movement of the funds from the reserve, because I know there's a lot of factors that are involved right now in engineering and costs. And I think it's important to get this project done. Yes.
I'll second.
I'll second.
I'll second. I'll second. So you can second. Parker, you want a roll call?
Roll call. Aguilita Oaks,
Aye.
Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande. Aye. Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista, New Monterey.
Aye.
Thank you. Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Yes, please.
and Vale Del Monte.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion approved.
And we're down to item 8, receive a presentation on NCIP projects approved by city council in previous fiscal years and make motions for recommending action to city council with a presentation by Reggie.
Yes, we have this will be, I think this is the big one for this evening. I have quite a bit to go through, but I think we have some good solid recommendations. So we started this discussion at the last meeting and with the intention that the projects in question would go back to the neighborhoods through the NCIP representatives to get some clarification where needed. And then that we would follow up here tonight. So this evening, I'll go through what I received from the NCIP representatives, and then we can discuss individual projects as necessary. So I grouped these by era, I'll say. So pre-2020 NCIP projects, there's 2 remaining on the books. So there's the Mar Vista reconstruction design. The design has been completed. More or less, I would say we're probably at 80 to 90%. To get to 100%, we wanted to go to various neighbors and get their support for some of these like bulb outs and other things that would impact parking in front of their homes. We were unsuccessful in getting that support. So the NCIP representative for this one recommends that we close this project out currently, and they can be brought back at a later date if and when that support for those projects is present. So then Casa Verde Way Recreation Trail Crossing for anyone who drives Del Monte Avenue or lives in Del Monte Beach, you know that this project is underway.
We changed our mind.
It's almost done. Worst is behind you. So those are the pre-2020. So then for 2020 projects, we have a few more. The Emergency Operations Center upgrade. I know in the packet, it says we needed additional funds. I guess it's great news to report that we've taken a different path since this was prepared. ISD, the city's IT group, is running with this project and has a schedule to implement it in the next 90 days. So no additional funding is needed. And this one is running. Colton Hall restoration and preservation. This one is in need of still some additional refining and some funding. Earlier this month, I made a presentation to the Museums and Cultural Arts Commission to garner some support for this. So Brian Edwards and myself, we're gonna put together some more documentation. I know Brian is going back out for some grant funding and trying to get some more funding and more support. So we're working on this, and stay tuned. So you'll see some more on Colton Hall. So I guess actually that's the 2020 projects, then 23 projects. Upper Windermere log drops. We're in the process right now of we have a new contract on board in Public Works. I think this would be perfect for that. It's specifically designed, or the contract is specifically for storm infrastructure. So this one is ideal for that contract. So that's where this will go. 2308, the lighted crosswalk at Webster and El Camino, that has been designed. That was designed in-house, I'd like to say. So this one is gonna go out on similar projects in the downtown area where we have other curb ramp projects that are in the works. So this will be bundled, and it'll get done as soon as possible. 2314, the Mark Thomas Drive, Oak Grove neighborhood sign. So Caltrans has not been responsive, but we're gonna redouble our efforts, and I'm gonna look into it personally to see if we can't make this one happen. 2315, the Rio Paraiso Expression Swings. We've looked into it, and the NCIP rep from Monterey Vista is in agreement that we close this one out, since there's just no space in that playground area. 2319, the Visadero 700 block drainage. This one, the design is complete and is similar to that curb ramp project. We're gonna bundle it with other similar projects, and this one will get done. We have a number of projects in this immediate vicinity in the New Monterey area, so we're gonna do those together. Skyline Forest Drive, Holman Highway Bridge restoration. This one is kind of, we're working on it. We're looking at products. We have it contracted out actually, and we're gonna get it done as soon as we can. But we just there's 80 projects, so working. The restroom study, we're gonna look at rescoping this one and getting it done. 2325 Larkin Park swing installation. I recently spoke with earlier this week, even just spoke with our Parks and Rec director on this one. They said they'll take one more look at reevaluating the space. We're pretty confident that it's not there, but we'll give this one more college try. 2326 Casa Verde Way Highway 1 underpass hardscaping. This one's going back to City Council with the other projects, so that this will have direction soon. Don Davy Creek Path. So we've actually made some very good progress with PG&E. Their equipment relocation has been designed and has been scheduled for construction. So we're just going to open this one up. 2331 Casanova Avenue. The property owner adjacent to where the sidewalk would be has been pretty firm on their lack of support for this. So NCIP representative reached out one more time recently and got the same result. So we're going to recommend closing this one out for now. So moving on to the 2024 projects, Ryan Ranch Pickleball. project. In light of, you know, the available pickleball courts in the area, newer ones built at NPC and plans to install pickleball courts at the Monterey Tennis Center. We recommend not moving forward with this one at this time. 2406 Parente Park Playground improvements. This and other parks projects right now are kind of in a holding pattern. We have some vacancies in parks. As soon as those are filled, we look to move this one and others forward. Casanova Avenue, 500 block street light. We're running into that same resistance on the 500 block, and I know that the NCIP rep is looking at ways to and other options to get this project done. 2422, we all have a recommendation, I think, agreed on to combine the funds into one project with the larger 2502, I believe it is, undergrounding project. So just have it all under one roof, easier to manage that way. 2424 Veterans Park Bocce Ball. Again, this we this one will get done as soon as we get some spots filled in parks. 2426, this one will get pulled together with the other Windermere project and put out on that storm infrastructure contract. Each way boardwalk extensions, park staffing dependent. And then the rest of these are in that kind of that same boat. Well, actually, no. So let me go back. 2438 Surfway. Actually, I guess since I prepared this, I've actually seeking some outside contract support on this one specifically. And we have some ideas. We're going to put together some renderings and present those to the Del Monte Beach neighborhood to get some input on how to go forward. But ultimately, the vision is that both sides, Surfway and Roberts, will have the same fence, same look, same feel, and it'll tie both ends together. And then I think by then, that part of Del Monte Beach will be looking pretty good, right?
And nobody be falling through the fence.
So, yeah, and then the Lower Presidio, we're gonna get this one, but that's staffing dependent in the fish hopper. Those are both, like, I would say, kind of special, projects that require a different level of expertise. So I need to find the right persons to deal with those projects. So that was the 25 projects that were on the list, and I'm available for questions.
Anyone on the committee have questions? Go ahead.
What is a log drop?
So they're mini dams, like mighty micro dams, I would even say. So yeah, they're very small. And the idea was to slow the flow. So Skyline, I mean, it's very steep at the top of the hill. And what happens is when it rains and you get the flow from the streets and say all the other like driveways and sidewalks and all of that impervious flow or impervious, infrastructure, the flow kind of just channels and it is coming down the hill really fast. So the idea behind these log drops is that it breaks the flow and it slows it down. And number one is to reduce the erosion. Unfortunately, as I understand, those log drops were built in the early 2000s, and I would say they were overwhelmed almost as soon as they were built. I mean, there's reports going back to like 2010 where they were eroded around the edges, right? So what the water does is it finds its own path, and so the log drops were insufficient and the water just overtopped them and went around them. So what we need, in my opinion, is not to rebuild what was there, but we need a full depth analysis of the flow rates and all of the storm flow. And I mean, just take a brand new look at it and identify kind of what is actually needed and kind of just like what infrastructure is needed in that Skyline Forest neighborhood to really kind of control the flow better.
Thank you. I have a question about that. I thought that water flow was the individual property owner's responsibility.
Yes, but in this case, these are on city green belts. So yes, on your private property, it is the property owner's responsibility.
Any other questions from committee members? And Lee, go for it.
Considering your staffing, I think you've done a pretty good job with all those projects like that, with the 25 projects. When you only got half a battalion, you can't take the hill. You did an outstanding job.
It's a team effort. No, seriously. And these are
Always a team.
all right. Thank you.
Uh,
Any public comment?
yep, going to public comments. Anybody in the chambers have public comment?
Oh, wait, there's one, and there's one hand online.
Okay. Let's go for the one online.
Debbie, you should be able to speak.
Hi, my name is Debbie Major-Stegnan, and I live up in the Dry Creek area, which is just below the Skyline, just below where the log drops are. And I just wanted to say, I mean, we've lived here longer than we saw them put that in. So we've lived here quite a while. Since they have put that in, the homes along Dry Creek on the upper side have experienced flooding. And some of these homes have experienced a lot of flooding. We had problems on our property. We live on the lower side of Dry Creek. And the storm drain change that they did a few years ago outside our property helped a lot. But we had to do some work on our property. I think if the city or the neighborhood associations are going to do something like that, they really need to have some engineers take a look at it and also look at it after they put it in, because it has caused a lot of damage.
Debbie, is that the end of your comment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other hands online.
And another in the top. There we go.
I'm going to make a quick comment about Caltrans for the Oak Grove site in particular, which is what you raised, Reggie. But I would say anything for Caltrans. Hans and I met with Assemblymember Dawn Addis, and she has a pretty close relationship with the regional rep and at the state level. So if we need to push it from a legislative perspective, let us know for this project or otherwise, because I know that there's been some other issues as it relates to Caltrans. So just wanted to pass that along. And hopefully there's positive movement direction.
Bring in the big guns. Thank you.
Cool. So bring it back to the committee for discussion. How do we want to move forward with the list that Reggie presented? And do we want to make motions on individual projects that staff made recommendations on?
Well, I do have one, I guess, summary slide that might help with that. So we had, just to summarize, so Mar Vista reconstruction, we recommend project closeout, the Via Paraiso Park Expression Swings, Casanova Avenue 500 block. Those three projects, we recommend project closeout. And then the Monterey Vista conduit installation, recommend combining it with the underground project. So those were the four I'd say that had solid recommendations. I think the other ones, obviously the committee is up to, you can make any recommendations you want and we'll take them to council.
Okay.
For the Mar Vista reconstruction, I just wanted to let people know who care about the racetrack on Mar Vista and the speeding on there, that we do have the designs, and Gina Sessions and I will be walking various houses at various intersections and try to get one of the other intersections to, it didn't work at Toda Vista where we had started, and get support for putting in bulb outs and so forth. It's a tricky street because there's no electricity on it. Bulb outs have to be lit. So there's a lot of feelings against streetlights there because a lot of the houses have a really good view. So it's kind of a tricky area, but we hope to be able to find one of the intersections where people are supporting. So we'll be canvassing the neighborhoods before July, and hopefully we'll come back with a project. So that's it for that project.
Amy?
So on I know there's been discussion at council for a while now about the future of the Presidio Park. Does the project on here have any bearing on waiting to see what is the ultimate decision of what happens with whether the city keeps that park area?
I'll move here, pretend I'm ready. Yeah, so Brian Edwards gave an update to City Council on Lower Presidio. I believe it was on 3/28 or 3/18, March 18th. And so I believe that it should not make a difference. I think Sloat Monument is a monument that we'll all enjoy, whether we continue the lease or it becomes a different park.
There discussion by the committee?
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that we accept what Reggie just presented about the defunded the projects that will go away, plus combining the undergrounding as Reggie presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Aguirre Oaks.
Aye.
Thank you. Alta Mesa.
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll.
Aye.
Deer Flats.
Yes.
Del Monte Beach.
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande.
Aye.
Downtown.
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood.
Aye.
Monterey Vista.
Yes.
New Monterey.
Aye.
Thank you. Oak Grove.
Aye.
Old Town. Skyline.
Yes, please.
And Vale Del Monte.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Cool.
Okay, so we're, that went faster than I thought. Sorry.
So in one comment.
Job.
You did a great job, and the team came together, and
Invested too.
together, everybody achieved more.
Thank you. So on to item 9, which I think is the last item on tonight's agenda. So this is more of I'd say an open discussion. It's not really any action to take this evening, but I think it's an important discussion that people have wanted to have. So maybe it's good that there's quite a bit of time. Discuss NCIP committee member roles. And this has come up several times over the last couple of meetings and multiple times last year. And kind of some of the ideas for discussion are when and how to interact with project proponents, how to gather information on nominated projects, vet nominated projects for consistency with the NCIP requirements. I'd say a very big one is gauge neighbor support for nominated projects. And kind of anything else the committee would like to discuss. Just to, I guess, hone in on the gauge neighbor support aspect. We run into unfortunately, I think that a lot of ideas are great ideas. And in theory, everyone is supportive of those, but when it, when it becomes very personal, when it's in front of your house or, it doesn't quite get that same level of support. And so it's whether it's a street light or a sidewalk or a radar speed sign. So I just think that it would be helpful. I mean, and let me take one step back just to give an example, right? So we spent the better part of 9 months getting all of the neighbors to provide their written consent for us to do work on San Burnaby Drive. I personally went out to the neighborhood 4 times, spoke with different property owners, spoke on the phone with property owners, spoke in person. I think everyone that lives in the neighborhood would say that that's a necessary project. They all support it, but when it came down to, oh, well, so what exactly are you going to do? It's going to be in front of my house. You need me to sign something. It just becomes very different, right? It's just more real. So that's just something to keep in mind. And there's plenty of other examples of that. So I just want to keep just to put that out there. And then one of the things to keep in mind, right, that I think we've gotten away from it, but in the policy and procedures manual, it actually specifies we should have written proof of support at voting night. So I think that I'd like to stick to that for this year's voting. If it doesn't have support, we really shouldn't vote for it, even if it's a great idea. And as a reminder, it's in the packet. We talked about this last time. This is that project support form. And I'm willing and happy to send it to anyone who needs a copy. So that's that part of it. And then again, it's kind of the same thing, but slightly different. It's interacting with the neighborhood. So I know some people feel that it's very important for the NCIP representatives to interact with the neighborhood as a whole, and not just the project proponents. So again, it's kind of how and when to engage with the members of your neighborhood, interacting with the neighborhood community groups that exist outside of NCIP, and briefing your neighbors on projects within the neighborhood. And as far as that goes, and I've been trying to update the website. Parker and I have been updating the website with different materials that should be available. We're putting completed projects on the website. We're updating. There's a active project status list that we're updating as well. So that information is out there readily available. And then again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out. So I think that's really the end of my presentation. So I'm open for questions, and then, yeah.
I'm one of the people that asked this to be actually in this discussion, because it used to be in the old days, we wouldn't vote on it until that line on the submittal form that said, is there support, was filled out. Now, it did used to specify for parking, when there's an impact on parking spaces, you need to get so many houses. I'm not sure that we spell out exactly how that anymore. That was the old manual. But coming in with support is an important thing, and we shouldn't be voting on it unless we have a comfort level. Maybe we have to decide how many spaces, how many feet of support different impacts need to have, which we used to have. And so I want to bring that out further. As an NIP rep, I attend every single thing that goes on in the neighborhood with any group, and act always as a, what are your needs? What are your questions? And what you'll find is you become a conduit between the neighborhood and the city. And you start to say, oh, this is a person you need to talk to, or let me answer that for you. When it comes to voting night, I don't ever vote my priorities. I don't. So what I do is I used to hand out paper ballots and collect them in the box. Other neighborhoods used to have a phone message where you could call in your vote. Email's available. I actually now run a survey, and I make sure that survey is out to every single person that lives in the neighborhood, renter, homeowner, doesn't matter. And then I take that survey and my votes are informed by that. But I have been out there explaining all these projects at every place I can, or asking that there be meetings so that I can explain projects so that I'm getting good votes back. So there's the support at the beginning and there's a support at the end. And it's an all year long working on this with everybody in the neighborhood and becoming that connection so they know to share the information and questions.
We should go to public comment before
Discussion. Yeah. Does anyone have any public comment in the audience?
Surprise.
Not really.
Not really. Here is the president of New Monterey Neighborhood Association. Many of you have been around in the NIP committee for decades, years. And so you know that the neighborhood associations are really the cornerstone of a lot of this process, at least in the past. Our neighborhood has been instrumental in engaging support for projects. And I think it would be good to get back to that practice of leaning on the neighborhood associations to do a lot of the legwork you need to have done for gauging support or lack thereof of these projects. I mean, we're here to serve the neighborhoods, and that we see as one of our fundamental roles to perform. So don't forget about your neighborhood associations. Thank you.
Any other got another one in chambers.
I really appreciate the approach that you take, and I just want to make a note that in that request potentially for written support from owners, I think we need to be mindful that there are so many people who are really dedicated to their neighborhoods who are not property owners. And so we need to be valuing and validating the people who rent, but who are, you know, committed people who live in our neighborhoods too.
Yes.
I just want to make a quick comment that it does say property owners or residents, so it's not excluding residents.
I just wanted to bring up the quick point. I know that there's ideas circulating out there around projects that are public safety specific. And so I just wonder how we can think about that and look at how we might be able to change the process as it relates to those types of projects. I'm wondering what your thoughts are as maybe part of the discussion. But when it's something that, you know, I don't know if we want to consider a speed radar sign public safety, but folks speeding down a road where there might be kids playing and we're trying to promote more of a community feel where folks can be out walking around and parents feel comfortable with their kids being in the street. It might be something that we want to consider having a little bit more flexibility in regards to the city and the NCIP being able to move forward those projects that might be limited by just one person having resistance. So just something for a group's consideration.
There's one speaker online.
Let's have the online speaker.
Esther,
Good
you should be
evening.
able to speak.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Esther Malkin, President of Laguna Grande Neighborhood Association. Couple of things. I absolutely agree that nothing should be done on Reggie's part until there's complete buy-in. He spends so much time on these projects that then you have one neighbor that refuses to let it go through. And it's a waste of Reggie's time, a waste of our time, and your time. So that's one comment. The other comment I want to make is I've been one of the ones that have been talking to some of you about making an exception on getting all the neighborhoods. I don't know what the radius is to sign off on something that's safety related. We've had the only projects that we have actually put through have taken us a decade to get done. And they're safety related. And, you know, I've had to have Reggie come out, our council members come out, in addition to the enormous amount of time that Scott's had to put into it, between contacting renters who live there, who can't sign off on anything, the owner of the property. All of this is very, very time consuming. When it comes to a safety matter, it's a pretty cut and dry if it's a safety matter. If you have a dark street that 3 out of 4 neighbors want a street light there, and we've had people attacked literally right where that is going to go, one neighbor shouldn't be able to block that. And especially when there's absolutely no reason. They don't give us a reason. They just don't want it. If they came up with some reasonable reason, but every time we've had to go through this, they have not given us a reason that is enough to say this is not worth having. So I want to consider the safety related items to be thought about in that light, as opposed to aesthetic or, you know, tot lot improvements or things like that. It just seems like it's a no-brainer. It's also, I think, in the long term, a liability. We've had accidents on our street where we're looking to put the street light. You know, if somebody has an accident or gets hit by a car there, and they know that this has been presented to the city multiple times and they ignored it, I don't know, I would kind of consider that as a liability to the city, because if that person finds out that this has been an ongoing problem that refused to be addressed or was eliminated because of, you know, this situation with one neighbor, I would try and sue the city for it. So that's just, I wanted to put that out there because I don't know about the rest of you, but we have had that problem. And our board works very closely with our NCIP rep.
Sorry, Esther, your time is up. Thank you,
Oh,
though.
I
Your
didn't
comment's
see a
been
timer.
received.
Okay, I
Thank
didn't
you.
see a timer.
And that's, there are no more hands online.
Okay, to the committee for discussion.
I want to thank Jamie for explaining how she votes. I know my representative and I have been wondering how you get the numbers that you use on voting night. And we have discussed that we want our votes to, or my vote, to reflect what the neighborhood wants, but we weren't sure how to facilitate that. So thank you for sharing how you collect that information. I know you were talking, Jamie was talking about like a distance from the project site or where a proposed project might be located. I know the planning department has a public noticing criteria. It's like, I don't know if, I think it's 500 feet. I think from, I could be wrong with the number, but there is a public noticing that all planning departments in every jurisdiction has to do whenever some project is proposed. And it gives a person an opportunity to voice their support or not to voice, you know, to express their concerns. Generally, you don't hear anything, but you often do hear people who are not happy with the project. So I don't think there is a distance for support mentioned in the new manual, and I think that might be helpful. That way I'm not going, or none of us are going way far away from an area, and the people who are more impacted in the immediate vicinity, that their support or non-support should really factor a little bit more than someone who's not immediately impacted by a street light or a sidewalk or something like that.
Thank you. So we used to have 300 feet before, but we found that depending on a project, if it was a smaller project and let's say sidewalk in front of one person's house, the 300 foot really didn't apply because it really didn't have an adverse effect. And so the way I understand it, and I got clarification this week, is that the 300-foot it wasn't a one size fits all. So if we do have a larger project, like let's say, for example, we do a partial closure on a street, it might affect a resident that's more than 300 feet. So that's why it got taken out, because it really just depends on the project. And I think that's something we can discuss, but it doesn't end up being a one size fits all.
Would be helpful as the projects, you did already, Parker, send one project over, but it would be helpful if you sent all of the projects that are currently new to us. I know most of them are actually city projects in the downtown area. And so that would be helpful so Bella and I can start the discussions. And then when you talk about getting neighborhood support, in the case of downtown, almost all of the projects are having to do with city property or in city parks or things like that. So it's a little more difficult trying to get support for those types of projects because there's a reality for the whole city rather than just in our area. So.
Yes, to your comment, yes, I have been sending out to the representatives and alternates for each neighborhood whenever a new project nomination is received. That way you guys are aware of that. I can send out after this meeting to everyone neighborhood that has received a new project nomination. Also among the resources on our city website, we do have the nomination chart. So if there is a specific project that you aren't aware of, you can also reach out to me because that is updated on a weekly basis on Fridays as well. So that information is available on the website and I can make that available again through an email. None.
Okay.
So back when, this goes back a while, and intersection you worked on recently with the utility boxes, it's Deer Forest and Upfront, right at the top of the hill, the entrance to Deer Flats. We put in a safety related, very expensive though, because it was re-engineering basically the design of that intersection, because it created a blind spot for residents coming out of that road onto the main drive going down to Jocelyn Canyon. And in that case, we did not do everybody approve it. We valued the people that were going to be most impacted because there were bulb outs. And there were people concerned about parking and the restructure of that intersection. But there were some people that just, like the person online said, that were just against it just because, and they were naysayers. And Jeff Krebs was the engineer that was helping us run it. And Jeff Campen was our association president, and he kind of put more weight on those people that were most impacted and supported. And we did the project, and it's been really well embraced. And I just want to thank Reggie for the work we phased it because it was expensive. So some of the utility boxes are still on that sight line, but they installed, what do you call it, the retaining wall to cut back that hill a little bit at the intersection and basically raise the side street that comes up to the stop sign to give them a little bit better visibility. But it's really cut down on some of the concerns about potential impacts or, accidents, motor vehicle accidents. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic that comes through there too. So we saw it as a net positive and a safety related issue, and had good outcome, even though we didn't have 100% unanimous support for the project.
For those of you who are interested in polling your neighborhood, we've been using Google Forms for the last few years, and that's worked really well. It's a free way, much easier. It's less expensive than SurveyMonkey, but if anybody wants help with setting up a Google Form survey to get out to your neighborhood, it's a very simple way of collecting votes and getting a priority for projects. And I'll be happy to help anybody set that up. Thanks.
So quick question. I seem to remember that it would be something like if you were putting in an island to slow traffic down, safety. You know, this is our focus and it's important. We used to say something like, if you survey the 12 people that will be impacted, you need at least 10 to approve. So there used to be room for consideration of the total picture. Since we don't have the measurements anymore, we also don't have room specified. Can we make up policies that talk about allowing for a little bit of dissent and still a majority of approval? And two, how could we measure that? So I think that's a question I need to take back to the city attorney.
So I can just give a little bit of a historic component to this. So we did, I'm not going to mention which neighborhood, we did install a radar speed sign. The rep at the time had said, yes, everybody's on board, no issues. We placed it there. It was working. It was great. The person said, I was never contacted. I don't want this in front of my house. And we had to relocate it at city's expense. So while I do understand that there's a lot of time that's spent with the resident, there are certain things, and this is not going to make me very popular, but there's certain things, for example, let's say you want to put a median somewhere and that property does lose parking. So that person should have a say in the project. So it is going to change how it is affected. Especially if the person deems that it's going to maybe degrade their property value. I mean, people have different opinions. So there may be something to consider is not necessarily changing the policies, but if we do find something that might be more controversial, one idea is to maybe have the residents that are opposed come through the MCAP meeting so they can voice their opinions. And then ultimately, council is responsible for funding that project or not.
Well, to take an extreme example where I think some movement on this might be advantageous. We had a recommendation in a city council approved traffic study for bulb outs at an intersection. And one of the 4 residents didn't approve of it. And that was enough to kill it. And to think that we went through all the legwork and effort and expense to get the traffic study done in the first place, only to have that be scrubbed for because of one resident's opinion on a safety project just didn't seem palatable.
AJ has his hand raised.
Okay. Let's hear from AJ.
Thanks. Yeah, so I don't want to kind of keep circling back to the same point, but to Jamie's comment, I don't know, in terms of making policy, I don't know if that's necessarily our committee's, role here, but understanding what existing policies are, it seems like they're quite hazy based on the way that people are discussing them. Where would be the best resource to kind of get more clarity on the scenarios in which one neighbor can, one neighbor's opinion can halt a project or require the project to be, undone if it was to start? And maybe you can kind of speak to the foot, like, it's like where, is there a certain class of projects in which we have much more flexibility? And any guidance or clarity on those elements would be super helpful as I'm trying to better understand the right way to navigate this myself.
I think this is somewhat like the basic speed law, where it says if you're speeding and it's foggy, you're probably not the posted speed limit is what's logical to do. So I think we we run into problems, as Andrea mentioned earlier, where, 300 feet doesn't necessarily give you the right distance for the project because the project's got its own little life. Maybe it's a foggy project. Maybe you got to go slower. So I think we need kind of a rule that's very much like the basic speed law. You slow down when things are, whether more changes to travel in. And you consider all of the neighbors and whether or not a street light next to their bedroom on that particular location is an issue or not. So it's sort of the reasonable man principle. Is that what I think we ought to get towards? I think Andrea had some thoughts too.
Yeah, again, I want to say that it's not unfortunately a one size fits all. It really does depend on the project. And I think that we've worked a lot with NCIP reps, and I know that there's a project on Villa Del Monte where we also couldn't do one of the corners. We actually did 3 corners, but not the 4th one because the property owner didn't agree. I also want to caution that does put the city staff and likely Reggie, whoever is working with the NCIP rep, also in a position where we're getting the calls saying, why is the city doing this to us? Not why are we collaborating on something? So the NCIP process has always been very collaborative. Again, I understand the frustration completely, but it also does put staff sometimes in a difficult situation. And the resident could go to then council or, have other recourses. If we're gonna go this way, I'd like to make sure that we're all on the same page and council is aware. So that if someone does go to council and they have an issue with the project, they understand why.
So, Dennis, I'd like to get clarity, because in downtown, we have a lot of businesses. And so we've talked about residents and we've talked about renters. What happens if the business objects?
So that would probably be the equivalent to a resident, or whether it's the property owner or the business, they would have a say on it. And I think that, especially downtown, it would mostly be probably loss of parking, that would be a big one.
Yeah.
Amy?
So to bring this back, I think it is where we started, that we need to be sure that we fill out that part on there and make it really clear. And you know what, if we don't have 100% nailed down, we need to specify it. Because normally the practice has been to vote no on it when it's not 100% because of these concerns. But what I am hearing is if we feel strongly about it and we do vote yes on it, we can bring that decision forward to the city council, but everybody needs to be aware that there's potential conflict in there. So by spelling out the conflict before voting night, we're going to be able to make the best decision.
And pass that up the hill to city council so they know why we made the decision we made. It's very much like the Opportunity Buying Fund. I don't think they understood what we were doing. Anyone else?
I kind of have a more general question, Jill from Villa Del Monte. So on a situation where there was a traffic study by engineers hired for that, they make recommendations. Is that even something that really NCIP can make a project out of, or isn't that part of the traffic study process implemented by the city?
So traffic calming started with what we had throughout the city, and Tom Reeves, you have a lot of experience with that one, so you might have some memories there too, is we had a lot of different projects in different places. So what happens is when you put a median or a partial closure, and then you're starting to have, you can affect other streets without looking at the whole neighborhood. And so we started doing traffic calming plans, and I want to say 20 something years ago, so that we can look at the neighborhood as a whole instead of just looking at this street and then pushing the problem to another street, pushing the problem to another street. And so the whole purpose of it was, beautification, enhancement, I know that we've run into a lot of, especially in Kona in the very beginning, they had one of the very first traffic calming plans. It was, the folks didn't want the median because they didn't want to lose parking in front of their house. And so the whole part of the traffic calming program was to have NCAP almost have a menu and a list of projects that are already pre-approved by council that don't start affecting the different streets in ways that we can control it. So that was the purpose, is having basically a menu. You want to pick a project. These are good projects that have been vetted by council and the neighborhood. And that council knows that we held neighborhood outreach and everybody had a say. Unfortunately, we didn't get many participants in a lot of the plans. But at least, there was an outreach and there was a chance to hear a voice, there were traffic counts, and those treatments made sense. Now, I'm going to put my super nerdy engineering hat on and say that safety is a little bit subjective. I tend to safety, slowing down cars contributes to safety. But if you call a median a safety project, it might not necessarily be a safety project, it's a traffic calming project. So I know that we like to use safety words, but it can be a little bit subjective and hard to prove if we're just looking at our standards and our state and federal standards. So I don't know if that answers your question on the traffic calming plans.
It gives me a lot more insight, thank you. But let's say there's on one of the, say in my neighborhood, there was a bump out suggested and so that the sidewalks wouldn't be as long. I mean, that crossing wouldn't be as long. But they've never been done. And is that something that could be or should be an NCIP project?
Absolutely.
It's done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I always thought, well, the city paid for the whole calming thing and they're probably running with this,
Actually, the traffic calming plans were funded by NCIP as well.
Okay, excellent.
Any more thoughts? Anyone else wish to speak on this? Going once, going twice. Do we want to put this on a future agenda, or do we want to kind of wrap this one up? I kind of like the basic speed law thing myself. Okay, moving on.
In the speed law, there's still a speed limit though, right? And so that's my one comment here that would still add clarity. It still seems that there's some, unwritten or written policy as it relates to like when one neighbor or a minority of neighbors can prevent a project from moving forward. Understanding the precedent in the committee is one thing, but understanding like the actual laws as it relates to the rights of individual neighbors in relation to different classes of NCIP projects would also be helpful to better understand. Any documentation to kind of help support that interpretation would be one request that I would enjoy. I don't need a huge book, but if there's a few project examples, that would be a great starting point.
Procedures.
It could be in the procedures manual, but the other thing I was thinking about is there was a discussion of if there are people who are objecting to it, then that should be noted so that we know about that before voting night. And if we decide to vote it in anyway, that knowledge of the objection go up to city council. Because it could be that, we've got 12 people on a block, 10 of them say we ought to do this, and it's really a very necessary thing to do. Then I think the appropriate reasonable person thing to do is say, okay, I've got these 10 that love it. I got these 2 that don't want it. But we think it's a very good idea on the NCIP overall and vote it in, but it goes to city council with the objections noted. And I think that's the fair thing to do. We're trying to do the most good for the most people. And we can't satisfy everyone.
That's true.
But we're not going to be the police officers and say, no, you were speeding. And when I was referring to the basic speed law, I was referring to there could be fog, which is going to make the posted sign something less. So you have to look at each situation. As Andrea said, none of these projects are the same. So we have to kind of have a reasonable person, basic speed law type of look at it and pass on the notes so that when it goes to council, they know what we're looking at.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Claire.
Yeah, I agree with Dennis. But to do that, would that require an amendment to the procedures manual, therefore agendizing it?
We don't have to change the manual. We can just behave that way.
Okay.
So I don't think that it requires further discussion or being on the agenda for a future time. But I think as long as we kind of memorialize that that's what we had in the minutes is what we've decided, then I think we're good.
I have one other question for you, mostly Dennis. You know, ideally a neighborhood has a meeting, you know, maybe it's at the picnic or whatever, and maybe the current project proposal ideas can be presented. And maybe you have a great neighborhood where most of your people come. Some neighborhoods have a high percentage of renters or people that don't want to participate. And then, like, to what extent do you seek their opinion? Like, for instance, I remember back in 2005 or 6, you know, and the city did a great job. And we even had these engineers, traffic engineers from, I think, Denver come and do a presentation. And we all voted there at the school. And then had several meetings to do that. And then the very last meeting, one of the neighbors who we hadn't heard of, no one knew, shows up and starts threatening legal stuff and, you know, and so I don't know how you more veteran NCIP committee members would go out and like knock on doors or.
I asked Dennis if I could respond to this. It goes back to the example of the intersection that we did the modifications for. And when Jeff Krebs was going to, he did a site meeting. And the homeowners association, as was mentioned, leveraged that. We reached out, whether they're renters or owners, they're on our email list. And we got a hold of people and said, hey, on this evening, we're going to have a meeting at the intersection with the NCIP liaison from engineering, and the people that cared came. But yeah, it's also us going out and talking to our neighbors.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
as was said, leveraging the association, the communication means. So if people are interested, they're going to come out, they're going to get involved.
I also like Hans' suggestion of using Google Forms to get a survey and to get a survey out. And that way you have evidence of what you tried. And, you know, we can only give the population as much voice as they're going to take. When we give them the opportunity, if they don't take it until we have the project halfway built, that's going to be a little hard for us. They're going to have to move radar speed signs, as you heard earlier. So I think it's very much a reasonable person. If you were in their position, what would you want to have done? Is the way that we need to kind of think about this as committee members. Because we're representing the public and we're actually representing a recommendation to city council on where public monies are being spent. So, you know, we have to consider all of that. That's why we have so much public testimony when we get to considering the projects and several nights of review of what those projects are. So we need to do a best effort, but I don't think we need to go completely crazy and make sure that we've got every single person in the neighborhood. That help?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else have any thoughts, comments, questions? Yes, we'll move to the next. Anybody online? Guess we'll move to the next agenda item, which is
There isn't one.
No, I have committee member comments.
Many member comments.
Meeting.
Yes.
Yes, committee member comments, Gary.
No, I have no comments.
Just a quick one. I'm getting feedback about eliminating all the neighborhoods coming to this meeting because we're so much trouble to work with and our meetings don't work. And I think that this is an amazing process that has worked very effectively for a very long time. And so, it might be good for us to maybe, email in and get our residents to email into the city and say, wait, stop. We like the way the information flows, because what I outlined to you is a whole lot of work. And if you were to go to our district instead of just our neighborhood, one, my neighborhood's tiny, you'd never hear us again because we're so much smaller than everybody else in the district. And two, the district is really, really large. To be able to do all the attending and the events that I do from that district is very hard. So I think it might be important for us to let the city know that this works, that our process of engaging with our neighbors is very effective and would be less effective if there was less of us. So letter writing campaign right there.
Just an update. Holly and I did meet with Reggie about a month ago, sometime in March, to look at the Don Davy Trail project, which has funding to finish the first phase. We've set up a meeting for the neighborhood on May 10th to get input from the neighborhood about. I'm hoping to have a representative from the police department and even maybe parks there, because I'd like to sort of revisit the whole of Don Davy Park and the issues, not just doing the trail, but I think anybody that drives them can see that there's issues in terms of dumping and illegal camping, and it's a really visible part of the city. So I think it warrants revisiting that project before we just say, does everybody want to do this? So I think there's broader issues. So anyway, that's what's happening in Alta Mesa.
So on April 14th, the radar speed signs were replaced on Airport. And I've already heard from neighbors that they're very happy they're there. So I just wanted to let everyone know that they were much appreciated, and the fact that the staff was able to use some of the existing infrastructure, which I guess really helped save some of the money for the installation or the replacement, I guess, was really great. And I wanted to thank staff for doing that. And I also wanted to let everyone know that the discussion that we've been having have been very informational. It's really appreciative. It's nice to be involved in a group where these kinds of discussions can happen, and the communication between so many of us is very constructive and very positive. So I just wanted to thank everybody for making this experience really enjoyable for myself. Thank you.
Jim, did you have any?
I feel fulfilled in my previous comments, so I don't have anything else to add. Thank you, though.
No
comment.
Luz?
I think I would like to have Andreas or anyone to send me an email with some of the points that will help for me to tell the neighbors when they have a project. It's not just to request a project, but to tell us what it will involve. Not just, I want to do this, and then what else? So we need to do this. Some ideas like we've been talking about. You can send that. That will be helpful, at least for me.
Kudos again to the engineer department, Reggie and his team. I think we're coming a long way. It's taking us, we're slow, we're doing the turtle, or we're crawling, but I think we're really, we're accomplishing things, and we're learning a lot more. because we have a lot of new members. So kudos, keep going. We'll see you in July. Thanks.
Yeah. All of us, our next meeting's July, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of time. We should start attending the neighborhood meetings. We should start getting more involved with the neighbors. And if you get a project sent, start now. Don't wait. Get it vetted before, because you don't, the last thing you want to do is try to vet something a week before before we have the first meeting. So anyway, and a good job, Richie.
Yeah, I would just echo what Lee and Kurt have said. You're operating at 50%, but you're doing Herculean work. So thanks for all the support from staff and council.
I just wanted to say, I talked with Shanari a while ago, and maybe a kind of a job description for the NCIP rep would be a good thing to kind of put together, especially for the newer members, to kind of lay out a little bit about what our responsibilities are and for this. And doesn't have to be in super detail, but kind of the idea of putting out a job description might not be a bad idea. But yeah, thanks for all the project support and everything. And I think we're doing good. And I hope the concept of trimming down NCIP to each district is dead for now, looking at the mayor. And but because I think it works really well the way we are. Every neighborhood, I think, does have different needs and desires. And this is a great way of getting everybody, all the neighborhoods' needs, is listened to, if not met. So I think it's really well.
We're nothing but good comments about all the Casanova radar speed signs. So it seems like all that extra work has paid off, and it seems to be spreading. And it spread to somebody in Ramona that I heard about on Nextdoor. So we set it aside tonight. It may reappear. Thanks.
And for online as well, Aguido, Oaks, or New Monterey.
Just a quick comment, if you're interested in finding out more about the state of the city infrastructure, we had a presentation on the wharf too yesterday. And on May 6th, we'll have an update to the city infrastructure needs.
Also, if I can make a comment, just a reminder for the deadline for receiving new NCIP project nominations is July 31st.
Thanks.
On the website.
I was going to throw in a couple of comments. I think the diversity of this group, if we got down to a lesser number of people, we'd have less number of expertise in the room. And I think that's important. I want to thank everyone for their cooperation. We heard from the city manager that we weren't necessarily a cooperative or potentially a combative group. I think we've changed that. And I thank everyone for their cooperation in doing that. You know, when I said earlier, I had a sign in my office, TEAM, together, everyone achieves more. And as long as we work together with city staff and getting good for the public and getting projects done, we're a team. And I appreciate all of you doing that. Thank you.
Okay, so Vice Chair, it's up to you to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, I was getting back to my notes. Next meeting will be July 2nd. And the meeting is adjourned at 8:04.
Thank you all.